In this video, we will analyze the correlation that exists in the traditional market, such as the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, as well as their main leading stocks like Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. We will conduct a cross-analysis to understand how the traditional market can impact the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Now you are looking at the chart of the S&P 500 in its daily time frame. You may recall that in January 2022, the price of the S&P 500, the quintessential American index, reached historic highs. Then we initiated a correction accompanied by an event led by the news of the CPI. From Crypto Insight, we strongly defended the view that we were not buying into the macroeconomic context and that the expected outcome was for this event to be a trap where, in reality, the price would tend to rise. Let's provide some context. The gray rectangle you see on the screen in this daily time frame was undoubtedly relevant, and it was what we were working on at Crypto Insight. Look at how it was being defended. This defense zone was widely observed. Well, not really, but you get the idea. You know that people often chart poorly. Okay, so here we have this defense zone, which was recently contacted, and look, here comes our friend. The fundamental bearish trap, clear and evident absorption. And they pierced the compression creek. For me, the SHIB 500 is bullish. There you have it. That said, what we are observing is a clear process of bullish accumulation where we identify the creek at the price level of $4,187. Here, the smart money has been accumulating its long positions, especially in this low part. And after piercing the creek, look at the price. It usually works the same type of structure that came to validate the structure and then continue its movement. Concepts that we work on daily in Crypto Insight videos. We know that large institutions work with pre-established institutional targets, and in this case, the first target takes us to the price level of $4,640, which, as you can see, has already been satisfied. It was later when they went to the creek to test it, seek that validation. And now we have pierced the level of the first institutional target, and everything points to us rushing to the second institutional target. This target is at the price level of $4,931. In other words, what we are seeing is that there is upside potential, and soon we will reveal whether in Crypto Insight we really believe that the price of the SHIB 500 will continue its bullish path. We will answer that question. And here you have the Nasdaq, the index of American tech companies that hold significant weight in the financial markets and the US economy, and consequently in the global economy. We observe something similar, a process of bullish accumulation where the price has already satisfied its first institutional target. Unlike the S&P 500, they did not go for the creek, the origin of the breakout. Instead, they worked on a defense zone, quite clearly defined, as you can see, knowing that smart money works with pre-established institutional targets. Here we see how they have already satisfied the first target, gained their profit, then worked on a small correction, a brief pause to pierce the zone of the first target and head, just like the S&P 500, to the second institutional target. In this case, it is at the price level of $17,577. In other words, there is room for an upward movement here as well. To understand whether this will be the end, to initiate a correction, work on a macro abstraction around the historic maximum, or whether the story will simply continue to rise. I'll give you that answer soon. We'll wisely refer to the leading American stocks that ultimately influence the S&P 500 and especially the Nasdaq. Here you're looking at Apple, the company founded by Steve Jobs. If you notice, we're dealing with a classic range in this daily Apple chart. What we've done is shift a volume profile from end to end. And you see this volume profile reflected in the gray histogram. The tool paints in red where the point of control POC is, the level with the highest transactional volume in the entire range. You'll also see that we've drawn a rectangle delineating where the value area of the entire Apple range is. As we know, the price tends to find value and a lot of comfort within the value area. It's much easier for it to find counterparties within this area. Look at what happens when the price decides to venture outside of it. There's always an immediate reaction, almost like market traps that urgently need to return to the value area. However, ranges are not infinite. That's why it's only a matter of time before the price seeks a detachment. This is when we've identified this trend line that is delimiting the potential bullish continuation of Apple. Here, we see a strong bullish impulse that ruthlessly pierced the trend line, defining this bullish continuation. Afterward, we observe a small correction that went first to test the value area, and even better, it precisely targeted the POC, the level with the highest transactional volume, to the millimeter. Once the price validates the zone and finds it unwelcome, unwilling to spend time inside. If we observe this compression and expulsion, it implies that the value area seems to have leaned towards a bullish direction due to precedence market market traps down below. So, what catches our attention? Initially, this first impulse, clearly it's a bullish impulse where smart money has been compulsively buying following the movement. Otherwise, we wouldn't see this kind of event depicted on the Apple chart. And since movements tend to seek a replica, considering what was explained earlier, we're already seeing how Apple, with room for an upward movement, either to reach the harmonic, fulfill that replica, or even to fail, to fall short and fail to reach the top. Harmonics often fail, and in case of failure, the information it provides is valuable, suggesting a potential opposite structural breakthrough. But hey, that's a bit far off. Hold on to the following message. As we've seen in the S&P 500 and Nasdaq, which is part of the Nasdaq index, also reflects that margin, either to fulfill it or fall short. If you're enjoying this content, let me know in the comments. Also, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon for future updates. Now, take a close look at the Microsoft chart in its daily time frame. Here, you're clearly observing a process of bullish accumulation, where we place the click at the price level of $292. Notice how we can locate the structure, the creek, as it's quite common, especially in American stocks, even those with a large market capitalization like Microsoft. See how smart money in such a significant event of breaking a creek forcefully to go upwards generates an initial feeling of compression and aggressive breakout, closing the market. Whether it's overnight or weekend transactions, smart money opens the price up here. First, they create a feeling of descent to deceive and then open up here. What's the objective? Very simple. They don't want you to join the party. That's why many structural level breakouts in the American stock market are done with gaps, like the one you see here. I explain this so you can clearly see how smart money is involved in this bullish market movement. Well, just like in any movement. Now notice how smart money always works with pre-established targets. And look at how they reached institutional target number 1, located at the price level of $367. Recently, the price has given us a potential upthrust and surpassed its all-time high. Well, Microsoft must be having a celebration. Now, when we see smart money hitting target number 1, as it did to correct and break it, there are possibilities to go for the second institutional target, which in this case is at the price level of $413. So, what's the takeaway? We have the potential for an upward move, but that ascent doesn't guarantee, at least for now, that the party will continue. But don't worry, I'll soon explain how we'll interpret, based on what we see on the chart, what we expect to happen in the medium and long term, not only in the traditional market, but also the implication and correlation it might have in the crypto market. Now, look at the chart of Amazon, how its price worked on a defense zone at a critical moment, as we all know. Towards the end, I confess, it's been challenging to identify the creek, but if you notice, we've worked on a process of bullish accumulation which, at the time, signaled its intentions. At the price level of $120, we saw the creeks break out, and as we always see in crypto insight videos, they came to validate the creek, the structure, before continuing their movement. Now, consider the following. Regarding the institutional target of this whole bullish accumulation process, we see it at the price level of $156, literally the price level where we currently are. But notice how the rest of the American stocks have managed to surpass their all-time highs. It seems that Amazon isn't doing as well as Apple and Microsoft, but what we're here to see, in any case, is that Amazon has just reached institutional target number 1, so it makes sense to expect some kind of reaction, as you know, but the message remains the same. There is room to potentially reach target number 2 in the future. As you're realizing, this information is telling us about the SHIB 500 Nasdaq, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google. Google, similar to Amazon, has worked on this defense zone where we see its guideline, its creek, and they've worked on this process of bullish accumulation. So we then look for where the institutional target is for all this work and find it at the price level of $142. If you notice, like in Amazon, they haven't yet broken the all-time high. The truth is that if Google feels like it, especially seeing how they worked on this defense zone, where they created a trap followed by confirmation, there is potential and eagerness to go for the second institutional target. In this case, it would mean breaking the all-time high. In other words, it doesn't have to happen, but there is room. There is room for an upward move. Now, let's assess how likely it is to pursue such a movement and how it will affect the price of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. But before that, take a look at the price of Bitcoin on this daily time frame. What we see is how the price recently came to the breakout origin. After working through a distribution process, in this case, it's common to observe how the quotation, whether stocks or cryptos, tends to seek that guideline. There's always such temptation, and as a habit, we usually witness a certain reaction. Hence, we are at a very favorable point for Bitcoin and the entire crypto ecosystem. So, what conclusion can we draw from the traditional analysis? Well, as we're saying, the SHIB 500 has that room for an upward move. Whatever it wants to do, whether it rises or not. In the meantime, we would see Nasdaq also rising to its institutional target number 2. Apple looking for some kind of continuity to the harmonic without necessarily fulfilling it. Microsoft after breaking target number 1. Whether it has a slight idea of pursuing target number 2 or not. And the same goes for Amazon and Google. Alright, and practically, how can we use this information? Well, if the SHIB 500 convincingly surpasses the level of $4,923, if that is forcefully breached, regardless of seeing some kind of pause or consolidation, the idea would be to keep looking upwards. And this applies to all American stocks and Nasdaq that we've analyzed in this video. This, with Bitcoin, essentially aligns with the scenario that if this happens in the traditional market, we would then witness a Bitcoin with great force breaking the breakout origin. It will probably need some form of confirmation, but if Bitcoin overtakes the breakout origin, the idea of seeking a correction in the market from this interesting module would fade away. Remember, our preference is for the breakout origin to exert its strength and power and potentially lead the price downward. This is the preference, but it's clear that no one has a crystal ball, and in the end, we have to adapt to the market updates it provides. That's why the traditional market will inform us when we see how the SHIB 500 reacts to the second institutional target, observing how Nasdaq does. And as I've explained in Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Google, if you want to simplify, just follow the second target of the SHIB 500 and Nasdaq. I hope you found this medium to long-term technical analysis of the traditional and crypto markets interesting. It's essentially a Christmas special. I hope you're enjoying these holidays with your loved ones, finding a bit more happiness. I wish you very successful trading in the upcoming year 2024. If you've liked this special video analysis, let me know in the comments and we'll bring more to the channel. You can also support us by giving this video a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell icon to get notified of future posts on YouTube. And of course, I invite you to share our content with friends and trading and cryptocurrency groups. Wishing you the best of luck and see you in the next one. Merry Christmas!